Rain didn't just wash away the grime of Chicago's underworld. Tonight, it was washing away blood. Lincoln Moretti, the capo dei capi, thought he had seen every kind of darkness the city had to offer. He was wrong. When his headlights cut through the storm to reveal a broken figure collapsed on the asphalt, he didn't see a victim. He saw a mirror of his own fractured soul. But the woman bleeding out in the gutter wasn't just a stranger. She was the walking, breathing secret that could burn his empire to the ground or be the only thing worth saving in it. The sky over Chicago wasn't just crying, it was screaming. Sheets of freezing rain hammered against the reinforced glass of the black Rolls-Royce Phantom, blurring the neon lights of the city into chaotic streaks of red and blue. Inside the cabin, the silence was absolute, save for the rhythmic thrum of the wipers and the low hum of the engine. Lincoln Moretti adjusted the cuffs of his bespoke Brioni suit, his eyes fixed on the rain-slicked road of Lower Wacker Drive. He was a man carved from marble and regret, 34 years of violence etched into the sharp lines of his jaw and the cold calculation of his dark eyes. Tonight had been a waste of time, a sit-down with the cartel that ended with empty threats and stale espresso. "Head straight to the penthouse, Giovanni," Lincoln murmured, his voice a low baritone that commanded attention without raising a decibel. "And call Victor. Tell him if the shipment isn't at the docks by midnight, he can ship himself back to Moscow in a pine box." "See, boss," Giovanni grunted from the driver's seat. He was a mountain of a man, loyal to a fault, with a neck thicker than most men's thighs. The car glided through the subterranean streets, the tires hissing against the wet concrete. They were passing the darker, neglected stretches of the city, the places where streetlights flickered and died, and where the city's predators hunted. Suddenly, Giovanni slammed on the brakes. The heavy luxury car skidded slightly, the anti-lock brakes pulsing, before coming to a halt just inches from a pile of refuse on the side of the road. "Cicazzo!" Lincoln hissed, bracing a hand against the leather seat. "Giovanni, if you value your hands—" "Boss," Giovanni interrupted, his voice tight. "Look, there." Lincoln followed his driver's gaze. It wasn't a pile of refuse. It was a woman. She was barely visible against the grey slush of the gutter. She wore a dress that might have once been white, now stained a muddy crimson and plastered to her skin by the torrential downpour. She was barefoot, her knees scraped raw, and she was trying to crawl. One arm dragged the rest of her body forward, inch by agonizing inch, while the other clutched her ribs. Lincoln felt a strange, cold pull in his chest. In his line of work, you didn't stop. You didn't look. Collateral damage was just part of the landscape. But something about the way she fought the pavement, the sheer refusal to just lay down and die, struck a chord in him. "Stay here," Lincoln ordered. "Boss, it could be a setup. The Irish are getting bold. I said stay." Lincoln opened the door, and the icy wind instantly bit into him. He stepped out, his Italian leather shoes splashing into a puddle of oil and water. He didn't run. Lincoln Moretti never ran. He walked with purpose toward the figure. As he got closer, the extent of the damage became clear. Her blonde hair was matted with blood. Her face— He flinched internally. One eye was swollen shut, the cheekbone likely fractured. Her lips were split. She sensed him before she saw him. She stopped crawling and flipped onto her back, flinching as she raised a trembling hand to shield her face. She let out a whimpering sound that was more animal than human, the sound of a creature that expected only pain. "Please," she choked out, the word bubbling up with blood. "No more. I won't tell. I promise." Lincoln crouched down, ignoring the ruin of his suit trousers as his knee hit the wet asphalt. The rain plastered his dark hair to his forehead. He looked into one open eye. It was green, terrified, dilated, but piercingly green. "I am not the one who hurt you," Lincoln said, his voice cutting through the roar of the rain. It was softer than he intended. She blinked, raindrops catching on her eyelashes. She looked at his expensive coat, the scar above his eyebrow, the dangerous stillness of him. She tried to scramble backward, but her body gave out. She collapsed, her head lolling to the side. Lincoln saw the bruises on her neck. Handprints, large ones. Rage, hot and unfamiliar, flared in his gut. He didn't know this woman. She was a ghost, a nobody. But in that moment, seeing the brutality etched onto her skin, he wanted to find the man who did this and peel him apart slowly. "Who did this?" he demanded quietly. He's coming," she whispered, her eyes rolling back. "Declan. He's coming." Declan. The name meant nothing to him, yet it sounded like a death sentence on her lips. Giovanni was out of the car now, umbrella in hand, scanning the shadows with his hand hovering over the Glock 19, holstered beneath his jacket. "Boss, we need to move. This is too exposed." Lincoln didn't hesitate. He scooped the woman up into his arms. She was terrifyingly light, her bones feeling fragile as bird wings against his chest. She groaned in pain, her head falling against his shoulder, staining his cashmere coat with blood and grime. "Open the door," Lincoln commanded. "Boss, the upholstery." "Open the damn door, Giovanni." He settled her into the back seat, sliding in beside her. "Turn the heat up. Max, and get us to the penthouse. Call Dr. Evans. Tell him to meet us there in 10 minutes, or I shut down his practice permanently." "The hospital?" Giovanni asked, pulling the car back onto the road with a squeal of tires. "No," Lincoln said, looking down at the unconscious woman. Her shivering was violent, her teeth chattering even as she slipped into the dark. "No hospitals, no police. Whoever did this, they wanted her dead. If she goes into the system, they'll finish the job." He took off his coat and draped it over her, tucking it around her freezing shoulders. He reached out, hesitating for a moment, before brushing a wet strand of hair away from her battered face. "You're safe now," he whispered to the unconscious stranger. It was a lie, of course. No one around Lincoln Moretti was ever safe. But for tonight, he would make it the truth. The elevator opened directly into the penthouse, a sprawling expanse of glass, steel, and dark wood that overlooked the Chicago skyline. It was a fortress in the sky, cold and impenetrable. Lincoln carried her through the foyer, past the abstract sculptures and the $10,000 rugs. His housekeeper, Maria, a stout woman who had practically raised him after his mother died, came rushing out of the kitchen, wiping her hands on her apron. "Gesù, Giuseppe e Maria," she gasped, her hands flying to her mouth. "Enzo, what have you done?" "Prepare the guest room, Maria, the blue one. Get warm water, towels, and the first aid kit until Evans gets here." Lincoln barked, not breaking his stride. He laid the woman on the king-sized bed, the pristine white Egyptian cotton sheets instantly staining with mud and blood. It looked like a crime scene. In a way, it was. Maria bustled in, her maternal instincts overriding her shock. She began to strip the sodden dress from the woman's body with gentle, efficient hands. Lincoln turned his back, walking to the floor-to-ceiling window to stare out at the rain. "She's been beaten bad, Enzo." Maria's voice wavered. "Look at her back, old scars, and fresh ones." Lincoln's jaw tightened. "Just clean her up, Maria." Dr. Evans arrived 6 minutes later, looking disheveled and smelling faintly of scotch. He was a disgraced trauma surgeon who now made his living patching up bullet holes for the outfit. He took one look at the woman and sobered up instantly. Lincoln waited in the hallway, pacing. He lit a cigarette, the smoke curling blue in the dim light. Why had he brought her here? He should have dropped her at an ER and left. He was the Don of the Chicago outfit. He didn't rescue stray puppies, and he certainly didn't rescue battered women. It was sloppy. It was a liability. But he couldn't forget the way she had looked at him. Like he was death, and she was welcoming it. After an hour, Evans emerged, wiping his hands on a rag. "She's stable," Evans said, his voice grave. 2 broken ribs, fractured zygomatic arch, cheekbone, severe concussion, defensive wounds on her forearms, and signs of long-term abuse, malnutrition, older fractures that healed poorly. "Will she live?" Lincoln asked, flicking ash onto the floor. "Physically? Yes, but she needs rest, and she needs to not be moved. Who is she, Lincoln?" "I don't know." Evans raised an eyebrow but knew better than to press. "I gave her a sedative. She'll sleep through the night. If she starts vomiting or seizing, call me. Otherwise, let her rest." Lincoln nodded, dismissing the doctor with a wave of his hand. He walked back into the room. Maria had dressed the woman in one of Lincoln's old silk shirts. It swallowed her small frame. She looked tiny in the massive bed, her face pale against the pillows, the bruising already turning a sickly purple-black. He pulled a chair to the bedside and sat. He watched the rise and fall of her chest. He noticed something then. Clutched in her hand, even in sleep, was a small, silver locket. Her knuckles were white from how hard she was holding it. Lincoln reached out and gently pried her fingers open. She whimpered, but didn't wake. He opened the locket. Inside was a tiny, grainy photo of a young girl, maybe 5 years old, smiling with a missing front tooth. And opposite the photo, a small, folded piece of paper. Lincoln unfolded it. It was a sequence of numbers. Coordinates? A bank account? "Who are you?" he whispered. He put the paper in his pocket and closed the locket, placing her hand back on the bed. He didn't sleep that night. He sat in the armchair in the corner of the room, his Glock on the side table, watching the door. He told himself he was guarding an asset. He told himself she might have information. But as the lightning flashed, illuminating her broken face, he knew it was something else. He was a man who dealt in power and fear. But looking at her, he felt a strange, protective fury. She belonged to him now, not as a possession, but as a responsibility. And if this Declan came looking for her, he would find the devil waiting instead. The first thing Sasha Valenti felt was softness. It was wrong. Her world was hard edges, cold floors, and the sharp sting of a backhand. Softness was a trap. Softness meant he was trying to apologize, which meant the next beating would be worse. She gasped, her eyes flying open, her body seizing in panic. She tried to sit up, but a scream of pain ripped through her ribcage, forcing her back down. "Easy," a voice said. "Deep. Calm. Dangerous." Sasha scrambled backward, pressing herself against the headboard, ignoring the agony in her body. She looked around wildly. This wasn't the basement. This wasn't the trailer. The room was massive, elegant, smelling of rain and expensive cologne. And in the corner, a man. He was sitting in a leather armchair, reading a newspaper. He lowered it slowly. He was devastatingly handsome, in a way that made her stomach turn over. Dark hair, olive skin, eyes like obsidian. But he was big, broad-shouldered, lethal. "Where am I?" Her voice was a cracked whisper. "Where is Declan?" "You're in Chicago," the man said, standing up. He moved with a predator's grace. He didn't approach the bed, staying at a respectful distance. "My name is Lincoln. I found you on Lower Wacker Drive last night." Sasha's memories crashed back into her. The escape, the broken window, running barefoot through the alley, the car, the lights. You You stopped, she said, blinking. I did. Why? Lincoln paused. The rain was ruining my shoes. I needed an excuse to get out of the car. It was a joke, deadpan and dry. But Sasha didn't smile. She scanned the room for exits. I have to leave. He'll find me. He's a cop. He has resources. A cop? Lincoln interrupted, his eyes narrowing. Sasha clamped her hand over her mouth. She had said too much. I have to go. You have 2 broken ribs and a concussion, Lincoln said, his voice hardening slightly. You aren't going anywhere. And if this Declan is a cop, then you're definitely safer here than on the street. You don't understand, Sasha pleaded, tears pricking her eyes. He's not just a cop. He's Detective Declan O'Malley. He runs the Vice Squad. He knows everyone. If he finds me here, he'll kill you too. Lincoln laughed. It was a low, dark sound that sent a shiver down her spine. Kill me. Tesoro, do you know who I am? Sasha looked at him properly then. The suit, the luxury, the way he held himself, the gun sitting casually on the side table. You're Mafia, she breathed. I am the Moretti family, Lincoln corrected. And Detective O'Malley is a gnat compared to what I deal with before breakfast. He took a step closer, and Sasha flinched. Lincoln stopped immediately, raising his hand slightly. I'm not going to touch you, he said firmly. I found the note in your locket. Sasha went still as a statue. You looked? I check the pockets of everyone who enters my home. It's a survival habit. Those numbers, they're offshore account numbers, aren't they? Sasha swallowed hard. She pulled the silk sheet tighter around her neck. It's his leverage. It's the money he takes from the dealers to look the other way. He kept it in a ledger. I memorized it and wrote it down. It's my insurance. Insurance for what? For my daughter. The room temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. Lincoln looked at her, really looked at her, seeing the desperation of a mother beneath the bruises of a victim. Where is she? Lincoln asked. He took her, Sasha sobbed, the dam finally breaking. He took Lily. He said if I ever tried to leave, I'd never see her again. He put her in a boarding school somewhere, under a fake name. That paper is the only thing I have to trade for her location. Lincoln felt a muscle in his jaw twitch. He had a strict code. Women and children were off limits. Using a child as leverage. That was the lowest form of filth. What is your name? He asked. Sasha Valenti. Well, Sasha Valenti, Lincoln said, walking to the side of the bed. He reached for the pitcher of water and poured a glass, extending it to her. She hesitated, then took it, her fingers brushing his. His skin was warm. Drink, then eat. Maria is making soup. And then, Lincoln said, his eyes turning cold as ice. You're going to tell me everything about Detective O'Malley, because he has something of yours. And now he has become a problem of mine. Why would you help me? Sasha asked, confusion warring with fear. I'm nobody. Lincoln looked down at her. He thought of the way she had crawled through the rain. He thought of the empty look in his own soul that he tried to fill with money and violence. Because, Lincoln said softly, I hate dirty cops. It was a half-truth. The real truth was buried deeper. But before he could analyze it, the door to the bedroom burst open. Giovanni stood there, his face pale. He never looked pale. Boss, Giovanni said urgently. We have a problem. O'Malley is on the news. He's issued an Amber Alert. For the girl? Lincoln asked. No, Giovanni said, holding up a tablet. For her? Lincoln took the tablet. On the screen was Sasha's face, a younger, unbruised version. The headline screamed, Wife of hero cop kidnapped by local gang members. Manhunt underway. Lincoln looked at the screen, then at Sasha. It seems, Lincoln said, a dangerous smile curving his lips, that your husband is trying to start a war. Sasha looked at the screen, terrified. He's framing you. He knows. He doesn't know me, Lincoln said, handing the tablet back to Giovanni. If he did, he would have written his will before pressing send on that press release. Lincoln turned to Sasha. You said you wanted to be safe? Safety is a myth. But vengeance? Vengeance is very real. Do you want to hide, Sasha? Or do you want to get your daughter back? Sasha looked at the man who had saved her. She saw the darkness in him, but she also saw power. Power she needed. I want my daughter, she whispered. Good, Lincoln said. Then welcome to the family. The penthouse transformed instantly from a sanctuary into a war room. The muffled silence of luxury was replaced by the terse hum of strategic planning. Lincoln stood by the massive windows, looking down at the city that was now actively hunting him. The police scanners, amplified through speakers in the study, were a chaotic symphony of dispatch codes and frantic voices. Every patrol car in Chicago was looking for the gang members who had snatched the heroic Detective O'Malley's wife. It was a masterclass in manipulation. Declan had taken his own crime and painted it onto Lincoln's canvas. He's smart, Lincoln admitted, watching the flashing lights of police cruisers mirroring the rain on the streets below. He knows he can't come at me directly without starting a street war that the city won't tolerate. So he uses the badge to do his dirty work. Sasha sat in an oversized armchair, wrapped in a cashmere blanket, holding a mug of herbal tea Maria had forced into her hands. The swelling on her face had gone down slightly, revealing the delicate structure of her cheekbones, but the bruising was a vibrant, horrific roadmap of her pain. He's terrified, Sasha said, her voice stronger now, fueled by the adrenaline of survival. The numbers I have, if those get out, it's not just him going to prison. It's judges, councilmen. He's the bagman for half the city's corruption. They're pressuring him to fix this. Lincoln turned from the window, his gaze intense. Giovanni, get Kyle up here. Now. Tell him to bring his best rig. He walked over to Sasha, kneeling so they were eye level. He didn't loom over her. He offered her an equal footing. Sasha, I need everything. Not just the numbers. I need to know his habits. Where does he go when he's stressed? Who does he drink with? Where are his blind spots? Sasha closed her eyes, diving into the memories she had tried so hard to suppress. He has a cabin. Up north, near Lake Geneva. It's under his cousin's name. He goes there when the heat gets too much in the city. He thinks no one knows about it, because he pays cash for everything related to it. Giovanni, put eyes on Lake Geneva, Lincoln barked over his shoulder. He's paranoid about his phone, Sasha continued, opening her eyes. They were hard now, like emeralds glinting in the dim light. He uses burners for the dirty business, switches them every 3 days. But he keeps a ledger, a physical one, to match the offshore accounts to the bribes. Where is the ledger? I don't know for sure. But he has a safe in the floor of our basement, under the rug where he used to hurt me. He thought I was too stupid or too scared to notice. A muscle feathered in Lincoln's jaw. The urge to violence was becoming a physical ache. Suddenly, Giovanni burst back into the room, his phone pressed to his ear. Boss, it's the West Side warehouse, the legitimate import hub. Lincoln stood up slowly. What about it? It's being raided. SWAT teams, news crews, the whole circus. O'Malley is leading the charge personally. They're tearing the place apart on live TV, claiming they're looking for Sasha, Lincoln walked into the media room and turned on the massive wall screen. There was Declan O'Malley, wearing a flak jacket over his suit, looking every inch the aggrieved husband for the cameras. Behind him, uniformed officers were smashing open crates of expensive Italian olive oil and designer textiles. "We will not rest until my wife is returned safely," Declan was saying into a microphone, his voice thick with manufactured emotion. "These animals think they can terrorize this city, but they made a mistake taking my Sasha." Lincoln watched the performance with icy detachment. He didn't see a hero. He saw a desperate man lighting fires to distract from the fact that he was burning alive. "He's provoking me," Lincoln murmured. "He wants me to send soldiers down there to defend my property. He wants a shootout so he can justify coming here with a tank." "What are you going to do?" Sasha asked, terrified. She saw the destruction on the screen and knew it was all her fault. Lincoln turned off the TV. The silence that followed was heavy. "He wants a war using bullets and badges," Lincoln said, his voice terrifyingly calm. "I'm going to give him a war, but I'm going to fight it with the one thing he values more than his life." He looked at Sasha. His reputation. A young man with spiky blonde hair and a laptop tucked under his arm skidded into the room. This was Kyle, Lincoln's digital ghost. "You rang, boss?" Kyle said, popping gum. He stopped short when he saw Sasha's battered face, his easygoing demeanor vanishing. "Jesus!" "Kyle, this is Sasha," Lincoln said. "She has a sequence of numbers in her locket. I want you to follow them. Find the money. Find who paid it. And then, I want you to leak every single transaction to the darkest corners of the internet and the front page of the Chicago Tribune simultaneously." Kyle grinned, a vicious, predatory look. Scorched earth policy. My favorite. "Declan O'Malley wants to be famous," Lincoln said, walking back to the window to look out at the rain-soaked city that felt like it was closing in on them. "Let's make him famous." 24 hours later, the atmosphere in the penthouse was thick enough to choke on. Kyle had set up a command center on the mahogany dining table, surrounded by monitors displaying cascading streams of data that meant nothing to Sasha, but everything to Lincoln. Sasha was healing physically, but emotionally, she was fraying. Every hour that passed was another hour Lily was lost in the system that Declan controlled. She paced the length of the living room, wearing leggings and a sweater Maria had bought for her, unable to sit still. Lincoln watched her from his desk. He wasn't getting any work done. His usual ruthless focus was entirely centered on the woman pacing his floors. He found himself admiring her strength. Most people broke under the kind of pressure she had endured for years. Sasha was bending, yes, but she wasn't breaking. "Got it," Kyle said suddenly, his fingers flying across the keyboard. Lincoln and Sasha were at the table in seconds. "The numbers in the locket were partial routing codes for shell companies in the Cayman Islands," Kyle explained rapidly. "It took some digging to bypass their encryption, but Sasha's memory was perfect. It unlocked the back door." He pulled up a spreadsheet. It was a staggering list of names and amounts. "These aren't street dealers," Lincoln muttered, leaning close to the screen. His finger traced the names. "Elderman Russo. Judge Davies, the deputy mayor. Cristo Santo, Declan isn't just dirty. He's the septic tank for the whole city administration." "This is why he's desperate," Sasha whispered, staring at the screen in horror. "If this gets out, the whole government collapses." "This is our leverage," Lincoln said, a grim satisfaction settling over him. "We don't just have him, we have everyone who protects him." Just then, the burner phone sitting in the center of the table began to vibrate. It was a stark, black device that only 3 people had the number for. Lincoln picked it up. The caller ID was blocked. He pressed answer and put it on speaker. "Speak." "Moretti." Declan O'Malley's voice filled the room. It wasn't the smooth, aggrieved voice from the TV. It was raw, jagged, and vibrating with rage. "You think you're clever hiding her? I know she's with you." "I don't know what you're talking about, Detective," Lincoln lied smoothly. "But I did see your performance on the news. Very moving. You should consider acting if the police work doesn't pan out." "Cut the shit. You have my wife, and you have something else of mine. If you're referring to your dignity, I'm afraid you lost that years ago." There was a smashing sound on the other end of the line, like Declan had thrown something against a wall. Sasha flinched violently, instinctively moving closer to Lincoln. Lincoln, without thinking, placed a protective hand on her lower back. "Listen to me, you greaseball piece of shit," Declan snarled. "You think you have leverage? You have nothing, because I have the ultimate trump card." There was a rustling sound, a whimpering. Sasha stopped breathing. "Say hello to Mummy, sweetie." Declan's voice dripped with cruel venom. "Mummy!" The voice was tiny, trembling, and terrified. It pierced the room like a physical blow. "Lily!" Sasha screamed toward the phone, lunging for it. Lincoln caught her, holding her back with an arm around her waist, though his own heart hammered against his ribs. "Lily, baby, are you okay? Where are you?" "Mommy, the man is scary. I want to go home. It smells like wet dog here and—" Click. The line went dead. Silence slammed back into the room, heavier than before. Sasha stared at the phone, her chest heaving, no sound coming from her throat. Then her knees buckled. Lincoln caught her fully this time, pulling her against his chest as a strangled sob tore its way out of her. She buried her face in his shirt, shaking uncontrollably. "He has her," she choked out. "He's terrified her." "Did you hear her voice? Oh God, Lincoln, please." Lincoln held her tightly. He wasn't used to comforting people. His life was built on inflicting pain, not soothing it. But holding this broken, fierce woman, he felt a volcanic rage building in his core that eclipsed anything he'd ever felt in business. Using a child, using a little girl's terror to manipulate her mother. It was a line you did not cross in Lincoln's world. For that alone, Declan O'Malley deserved a slow, agonizing end. "I heard her, Sasha," Lincoln whispered into her hair, his voice rough with suppressed emotion. "And I promise you, on my mother's grave, I am going to get her back. And then I am going to take him apart, piece by piece." He looked over Sasha's head at Cale, his eyes black pits of fury. Kyle, pale and shaken by the call, was already typing furiously. "Did you get it?" Lincoln demanded softly. "The call was too short to triangular exact location," Cale said, his voice unsteady. "But did you hear what the kid said? Before he cut the line?" Sasha pulled back from Lincoln slightly, wiping her tear-stained face. She said it smells like wet dog." Kyle pulled up a map on the big screen. It was a satellite view of the outer city limits, near the industrial wasteland by the river. "There's an old K-9 police training facility out past the scrapyards," Kyle said. "It was shut down 5 years ago due to flooding and mold. It's city property, abandoned, isolated." Lincoln looked at the map. It was perfect for a man hiding a secret he couldn't keep in a normal jail. He gently released Sasha, his hands lingering on her shoulders for a moment. The connection between them was palpable now, forged in the fires of shared trauma and a common enemy. "Giovanni," Lincoln's voice was ice cold, the voice of the Capo dei Capi. "Ready the cars, full loadout. We're going hunting." He turned back to Sasha. "You stay here with Maria. It's going to get ugly." Sasha shook her head violently. The fear in her eyes was gone, replaced by a mother's primal resolve. "No," she said, her voice steady. "That's my daughter. I'm coming with you." The abandoned K9 training facility sat on the edge of the Calumet River like a rotting carcass. Rusting chain-link fences, topped with razor wire, surrounded a complex of low-slung concrete buildings that were slowly sinking into the mud. The rain had turned the ground into a quagmire, the stench of stagnant water and industrial decay hanging heavy in the air. Lincoln's convoy, 3 matte-black SUVs, cut their lights a mile out. They approached in silence, the vehicles rolling like phantoms through the overgrown service road. Inside the lead vehicle, the tension was a physical weight. Lincoln checked the magazine of his custom Beretta 92FS. He looked at Sasha. She was wearing a Kevlar vest over her sweater, a stark contrast to the elegant, broken woman he had found in the gutter just days ago. Her hands were shaking, but her eyes were dry and focused. "Stay behind, Giovanni," Lincoln ordered, his voice low. "If shooting starts, you get down and you stay down. Do not try to be a hero, Sasha. Be a mother who lives to see her child." "I'm getting her back," Sasha said, her voice sounding like grinding stones. "No matter what." "We move," Lincoln signaled. The doors opened, and 12 men poured out into the rain. These weren't street thugs. They were soldiers of the outfit, disciplined and lethal. They fanned out, moving toward the main entrance with practiced efficiency. The breach was explosive. 2 of Lincoln's men blew the hinges off the reinforced steel door with localized charges. The boom echoed across the river, instantly followed by the crackle thump of suppressed gunfire. Declan wasn't alone. He had hired muscle, likely ex-cops fired for brutality, or mercenaries looking for a quick payday. Muzzle flashes lit up the dark, cavernous hallway of the main kennel building. "Clear left!" Giovanni roared, putting 2 rounds into a shadow that leveled a shotgun at them. Lincoln moved through the chaos like water. He didn't run. He advanced. He fired twice, dropping a man who popped out from a side office. He grabbed Sasha by the back of her vest, steering her through the smoke and debris, shielding her body with his own. The facility was a maze of old dog runs and cages. The symbolism made Lincoln's stomach churn. Declan had put a child in here. "Lily!" Sasha screamed, her voice tearing through the sound of gunfire. "Lily, Mommy is here! Mommy!" A high-pitched shriek echoed from the back of the building, down a long corridor lined with rusting metal cages. "Go!" Lincoln commanded his men, pointing to the flanks to cover them. "Giovanni, hold the hallway. Sasha, with me." They sprinted down the corridor, their footsteps splashing in puddles of leaking rainwater. At the end of the hall, a heavy metal door stood slightly ajar. A single yellow bulb flickered inside. Lincoln kicked the door open, gun raised. The room was an old veterinary surgery. In the center, sitting on a rusted metal table, was Lily. She was clutching a dirty stuffed bear, her eyes wide with terror, and standing behind her, the barrel of a .38 Special pressed against her temple, was Detective Declan O'Malley. He looked unhinged. His tie was undone, his shirt sweat-stained, his eyes bloodshot and wild. He didn't look like the polished hero from the news anymore. He looked like a cornered rat. "Stop!" Declan screamed, pressing the gun harder into the soft curls of his daughter's hair. Lily whimpered, squeezing her eyes shut. "One step closer, Moretti, and I paint the wall with her." Lincoln froze, holding up his free hand, his gun still trained on Declan's chest. "It's over, Declan. The building is surrounded. My men have cleared your hired help. There is no way out." Sasha stepped out from behind Lincoln. Her breath hitched when she saw her daughter, but she forced herself to look at her husband. "Let her go, Declan," Sasha said, her voice surprisingly steady. "This is between you and me. She's just a little girl." She's my leverage, Declan spat, sweat dripping down his forehead. You think I don't know what you did? You gave him the accounts. You ruined me. I'm a dead man walking because of you. You ruined yourself, Lincoln said, his voice deadly calm. You took bribes. You beat your wife. You kidnapped your child. There isn't a jury in America that won't hang you. There won't be a jury, Declan laughed frantically. I'm the police. I am the law. I can still fix this. I just need a hostage. He looked at Lincoln. I want a car. I want a jet at O'Hare. And I'm taking the girl. No, Sasha stepped forward. Stay back, you stupid bitch, Declan roared, cocking the hammer of the gun. Take me, Sasha said. She walked past the barrel of Lincoln's gun, stepping into the open. You want a hostage? Take me. I'm the one who knows the codes. I'm the one who can testify against you. Lily knows nothing. She's useless to you. Lincoln's heart hammered. Sasha, don't. He won't shoot me, Sasha said, never taking her eyes off Declan. She was walking closer, slowly. Because if he shoots me, he loses his only bargaining chip with the district attorney. He needs me alive to undo the leaks. Declan hesitated. The logic pierced through his panic. He looked from the crying child to the woman he had tormented for years. He saw the bruises on her face, bruises he had put there. He was used to her cowering. He wasn't used to this woman who stood tall in the face of death. Swap, Declan hissed. You come here, I let the brat go. But if Moretti twitches, you both die. Done, Sasha said. She reached the table. Declan shoved Lily roughly away. The little girl scrambled off the table, running blindly toward Lincoln. Lincoln holstered his weapon instantly, catching the child and swinging her behind him, covering her ears. Giovanni, he barked. Get the girl out, now. Giovanni appeared in the doorway, scooping up the sobbing child and vanishing down the hall. Now, it was just the three of them. Declan grabbed Sasha by her hair, yanking her back against his chest, the gun now pressed to her jaw. He sneered at Lincoln. Now what, big man? Declan taunted, regaining some of his arrogant swagger. You can't shoot me. You'll hit her. I walk out of here, and you stay, or she dies. Lincoln lowered his gun slowly. He looked at Sasha. He expected to see fear. Instead, he saw rage. Sasha's hands were at her sides. She remembered what Lincoln had told her in the car. Defense isn't about strength, it's about surprise. She remembered the years of pain. She remembered the fear in Lily's eyes. You're right, Declan, Sasha whispered. He can't shoot you. Shut up, Declan growled. But, Sasha said, her hand moving to her pocket, he doesn't have to. In one fluid motion, Sasha jammed the silver locket, the heavy metal heirloom, backward with all her strength. She didn't aim for his head. She aimed lower. She smashed the metal locket directly into Declan's groin. The sound was sickening. Declan's eyes bulged, his mouth opening in a silent scream of agony. His grip on her hair loosened, his knees buckling reflexively. The gun wavered. It was only a fraction of a second. But for Lincoln Moretti, it was a lifetime. Bang! Lincoln didn't hesitate. He fired a single shot. The bullet struck Declan in the right shoulder, shattering the bone. The gun flew from his hand, skittering across the floor. He collapsed backward, screaming in a mix of pain and shock, clutching his bleeding shoulder. Sasha scrambled away, gasping for air. Lincoln was there in an instant. He didn't look at Declan. He grabbed Sasha, checking her frantically. Did he hit you? Are you hurt? I'm fine, she breathed, adrenaline coursing through her veins. She looked down at the man writhing on the floor, the monster who had defined her life for a decade. I'm fine. Lincoln turned to Declan. He walked over and kicked the fallen gun into the corner. He stood over the detective, looking down like a god judging a sinner. "Please," Declan wheezed, clutching his shoulder, blood pooling around him. "I'm a cop. You can't arrest me. Call an ambulance." Lincoln crouched down. "You misunderstood the situation, detective. You aren't being arrested." Lincoln pulled out his phone. He dialed a number and put it on speaker. "Cale," Lincoln said. "Release the files." "Done, boss," Kyle's voice chirped. Every news outlet, the FBI and the Internal Affairs Bureau just got the full ledger, and I sent the photos of Sasha's injuries to the commissioner personally. Declan's face went white, whiter than the pain had made it. No, your career is dead," Lincoln said softly. "Your reputation is ash. You will go to prison, Declan. And in prison, cops like you, they don't last long, especially when they cross the outfit." Lincoln stood up. He offered his hand to Sasha. "Let's go home," he said. Sasha looked at Declan one last time. He was crying now, sobbing into the dirty floor of the dog kennel, broken and pathetic. She felt a weight lift off her shoulders, a weight she hadn't realized was crushing her soul. She took Lincoln's hand. "Yes, let's go." They walked out of the room, leaving the door open. The sirens were wailing in the distance. The real police were coming to clean up the mess. But for Sasha and Lincoln, the storm had finally broken. 3 months had passed since the night of the rain and the raid. Chicago was in the throes of a sweltering summer, a stark contrast to the freezing downpour that had brought Sasha Valenti into Lincoln Moretti's life. The city was different now, or at least the hierarchy of power had shifted. The scandal of Detective Declan O'Malley had rocked the police department to its core. The news was playing softly in the background of the penthouse kitchen. An anchor woman, looking grave, read the headlines. Former Detective Declan O'Malley was sentenced today to 30 years in federal prison without the possibility of parole. O'Malley, convicted of racketeering, corruption, and kidnapping, refused to comment as he was led away. Sasha stood at the marble island, chopping strawberries. She stopped, the knife hovering over the fruit, and watched the screen. Declan looked gaunt, a shadow of the arrogant man who had terrorized her. He looked at the camera, and for a split second, Sasha felt nothing. No fear, no anger, just a quiet indifference. He was a ghost. "Turn it off," a small voice said. Sasha looked down. Lily was sitting on a bar stool, swinging her legs, a trace of chocolate on her cheek. She was coloring in a sketchbook. "You're right, baby," Sasha smiled, clicking the remote. "Boring stuff anyway." "Is Uncle Gio taking me for ice cream today?" Lily asked, not looking up from her drawing of a very lopsided cat. "If he finishes his work," Sasha said. As if summoned, Giovanni walked in. The giant enforcer, who could snap a neck with one hand, was currently holding a tiny pink backpack. "Ready, Piccolina?" Giovanni grunted, trying to look tough and failing miserably in the presence of the 6-year-old. "Boss says the perimeter is clear. We go to the Navy Pier." "Yay!" Lily hopped down and ran to Giovanni, grabbing his massive hand. She looked back at her mother. "Bye, Mommy. Bye, Enzo." Lincoln walked into the kitchen just as they left. He was dressed in a tuxedo, the bow tie undone around his neck. He watched the door close, a faint smirk playing on his lips. "You've turned my top enforcer into a babysitter," Lincoln noted, leaning against the doorframe. "He volunteered," Sasha laughed. She walked over to him, wiping her hands on a towel. She looked different. The bruises were long gone. Her hair was shiny and full, her skin glowing with health. But more importantly, she stood differently. She took up space. She didn't flinch when he moved. "Are you ready for tonight?" Lincoln asked, his eyes scanning her face. Tonight was the Moretti Charity Gala. It was the biggest social event of the season, but for Sasha, it was a debut. It was the first time she would step out into the public eye, not as a victim, and not as a fugitive, but as Lincoln's partner. "I'm nervous," she admitted. "Everyone knows who I was. The battered wife, the headline." Lincoln stepped closer, closing the distance between them. He reached out and tilted her chin up. "Let them look. Do you know what they will see? They won't see a victim. They will see the woman who took down a corrupt empire with a silver locket and a backbone of steel. They will see the only person in this city I answer to." Sasha smiled, her heart fluttering. "You answer to me." "Occasionally," Lincoln amended, his dark eyes glittering with amusement. "When you're right." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. "I have something for you," he said. "The locket. It was a symbol of your survival. But it was also a cage. It held your fear." He opened the box. Inside wasn't a locket. It was a necklace, a single, flawless emerald, green as her eyes, set in platinum. It was open, light, and breathtakingly expensive. "No secrets inside this one," Lincoln whispered, fastening it around her neck. His fingers lingered on her nape, sending shivers down her spine. "Just beauty. And a promise." "What promise?" Sasha asked, turning to face him. "That you never have to hide again," Lincoln said seriously. "You are under my protection, Sasha. But more than that, you are under my care. I spent my whole life building walls to keep people out. I didn't realize I was just waiting for someone worth letting in." Sasha reached up, her hands resting on the lapels of his jacket. She thought of the rain, the gutter, the pain. It felt like a lifetime ago. She looked at the man who had been a monster to the world, but a savior to her. "I love you, Lincoln," she said. It was the first time she had said it out loud. Lincoln froze for a second, a look of raw vulnerability cracking his stoic mask. He wrapped his arms around her waist, pulling her flush against him. "And I," he murmured against her lips, "am entirely yours." He kissed her then, not a tentative kiss, but a claim. It was deep, passionate, and full of the fire that had burned down her old life to build this new one. "Boss," a voice crackled over the intercom, interrupting the moment. "Car's ready." Lincoln pulled back, sighing, but his eyes were smiling. "Time to go. Are you ready to face the wolves?" Sasha smoothed the skirt of her gown. She touched the emerald at her throat. She thought of her daughter safe and laughing. She thought of the man standing beside her. She smiled, and it was a smile that could cut glass. "Let them come," Sasha said. "I'm with the king." Lincoln offered her his arm. "After you, my queen." They walked out of the penthouse, leaving the shadows behind them, stepping into the light of the elevator that would take them down to the city they now ruled together. The rain had stopped a long time ago. In the end, Sasha Valenti's journey wasn't just about escaping a nightmare. It was about waking up to her own power. She went from a woman praying for invisibility in a rain-soaked gutter to a queen standing beside the most dangerous man in Chicago. Lincoln Moretti, a man who thought his soul was too dark for redemption, found his light in the one place he never expected, broken on the side of the road. Their story serves as a reminder that sometimes the people the world calls villains are the only ones brave enough to be heroes, and that love isn't just about soft moments, it's about standing back to back when the world tries to tear you apart. Declan O'Malley rotted in a cell of his own making, while Sasha and Lincoln built an empire on the foundation of a second chance. They proved that even in the darkest storms, you can find a home. And that is the story of how the Mafia Boss found his salvation in the rain. What did you think of Sasha's transformation? Did Declan get what he deserved? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story of danger, revenge, and romance, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new story. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next video.